Hey guys, it's Darwin here with my weekly Q&A to answer more of your questions. If you want to ask a question for next week's Q&A, you can either leave it in the comment box below or send me a video question over to darwinonthetrail@yahoo.com, and then next week I'll answer as many as I possibly can. Just to let you guys know, next week I will have a special guest with me here on the Q&A, and he is another thru hiker. So whatever questions that you leave for next week, make sure they're general enough for both of us to answer. I'm Kyle from Canada, and my question is, are you planning on going stoveless on the PCT? As well as, are you going to go for your triple crown? So Kyle, I am going to be going stoveless on at least the first 700 miles of the PCT. The reason I want to do that is because I'll be going through the desert, and going stoveless I can use a little bit less water when I am cold soaking versus boiling water to cook and then cleaning my pot and stuff. I'm mainly doing it just because it'll be much more simple on me, and it's less gear that I have to carry through that desert section since I'll be carrying extra water, an umbrella, extra desert gear. Plus, I just personally like going stoveless. It's just a convenience thing for me. Like I've said in other videos, at the end of the day, sometimes I just don't want to cook, and being able just to put a little bit of water in some food, shake it up, and let it set is amazing because I don't have to worry about that extra camp chore. And then I think that I might be picking up a stove in Kennedy Meadows for the Sierras, but I haven't decided yet. So as of now, that first 700 miles, yes, I will be stoveless. And then if I go stoveless for the rest of the trail, I don't know. Now, as far as your question about am I going for my triple crown, not really. I hike the AT, I'm gonna hike the PCT. When I get done with the PCT, my goal is to not go and hike the CDT. I've said it in the past, I really like the Continental Divide Trail, but as of right now, I have no plans on through hiking it just yet. My plan is when I get off of the PCT, I want to go hike a bunch of smaller trails. Now, as you guys know, I've been doing a lot of section hikes this year of the Arizona Trail, so I would love to eventually through hike that trail and then head back out to the East Coast and do a lot of smaller through hikes. So I might hike the CDT in the future, but for right now, no plans for a triple crown. How many miles do you get out of a pair of hiking shoes? Steve, I usually use the rule of thumb between 500 and 700 miles. Now, back when I hiked the AT, I used to wear the Merrell Moabs, and those I could usually get about 700 miles out of a pair. Since I switched to a trail runner, because now I use the Ultra Lone Peak 3.5, they're not as heavy duty, so they can break down a little bit faster. And because technically they are a running shoe, I've always had a rule of thumb with running shoes right around 500 miles. Since I used to be a big time runner and a triathlete, I always went by that rule because if I ever pushed a shoe over that, I would start getting leg problems. My knees would start hurting. I would start having an IT band syndrome. So I'm always really careful not to push a shoe too far past its prime. Once that foam starts breaking down, it can definitely cause problems in the long run. Now, on my last pair of Ultra 3.0s, I think I got like 450 miles out of them, and then I switched to the 3.5s, and I'm still rocking those, and I haven't worn them out yet, but we'll see how far I can push them before they kind of start giving me problems. I think it all depends on what shoe that you're wearing and what type of hiker you are. Some hikers just tear up shoes faster than others because they're just rougher on their shoes. They stomp down a little bit harder, they smack rocks, so it really all depends on the hiker and the shoe.
Hey Darwin, Lee Miller here from Southeast Michigan. We're on November 24th. It's a fantastic 45 degrees Fahrenheit, and in my opinion, a great time to hike. Question for you on how best to pack out a wet tent. What advice can you provide on that? One in which by the evening it's as dry as possible, any wetness hasn't transferred into the inside of the tent. And I'll give you a couple conditions. Number one, let's say it is a fall day in Southeast Michigan and any evaporative drying is at a minimum. And also it's not a $600 Dyneema tent, but rather a less expensive one that tends to absorb water. Thanks.
So that's a pretty killer question, and I might have answered that in the past, but what Snuggles and I did on the AT when we had a wet tent is we would carry 2 gallon Ziploc bags, and then if we woke up in the morning and our tent was wet from either rain or condensation, we would take the tent and we would stuff it into a gallon Ziploc bag, and then we would take the fly as a separate piece and put it in another gallon Ziploc bag. We would put it in the tent stuff sack, and then I would put it in my pack, and then in the middle of the day when we got to a break point, either for lunch or to grab some water, and we saw that the sun was out, maybe it was a little breezy, we would actually get the tent out and we would get the fly out. We would find a place to hang them, usually between 2 trees, and let them dry out. And that stuff would usually dry pretty fast. We would pack it back up. That way when we got to camp at the end of the night, we would have a dry tent. Now on that not so rare occasion that it rained all day, so we woke up, it was raining, we were hiking and it was raining, and we never really had a chance to stop and dry the tent out, those are the days that we would kind of give in and stay inside of a shelter. And I think that there was only one time that we set up a soaking wet tent and had to sleep in a wet tent. And if you've ever done that, it is awful. Nobody wants to sleep in a wet tent while it's still wet outside. So now that I carry a little bit lighter weight of a tent that dries a lot faster, and the pack that I carry has that big mesh pouch on the back, like the Z-Pack's Arc Blast or the Nero, if I wake up and my tent is damp from condensation, I'll just take it, I'll crunch it up, and I'll put it in that big mesh pocket and just allow it to dry throughout the day while I'm hiking. And that usually does the trick. And if it doesn't, like I said, I just stop. Whenever I'm taking a break, I find a place to hang it and let it dry. After completing a long distance trail like the AT or PCT, do you find enjoyment completing small trails on the lines of 20 to 60 miles? Or has completing a long distance trail kind of ruined you after seeing and doing so much? No, not at all. I am a hiking junkie. So whether it is a 2,000-mile trail, a 20-mile trail, a 3-mile trail, I love being out on the trail and hiking. And I hike every opportunity I get. It's therapy for me. So going out just to do a smaller trail, no, it's no different than me going out to do a bigger trail. Now, whenever I do a smaller trail, I'm a little bit more lax and kind of take my time, just because to me, doing something like a long distance trail is more of work. It's like going to work every single day. You gotta put in your miles for the day. You gotta get to that next point because you gotta complete that trail. Going out to do a smaller hike, like a 4-mile hike or a 10-mile hike or a 20-mile hike, you can be a little bit more lax. And I think it's good to have those smaller hikes if you are a long distance hiker. Because like I said, sometimes a long distance hike can feel like work. So going on a smaller hike and just enjoying yourself, being in nature, is what it's all about. Is redundancy important, or does leaving stuff at home lighten your load enough to justify taking the risk being out and about with broken gear? That's a good question, and I think it's all up to the hiker. Now, as far as having extra stuff on the trail, I've learned through hiking a bunch of miles that anytime I took that extra stuff, I never really needed it. And I know there's a lot of hikers that'll say, well, it's better to be prepared because you never know when you're gonna need something. But yeah, I don't know if I really wanna give that a completely honest answer, because a bunch of people will tear me up for saying stuff like that. The only thing extra that I ever really carry is I carry an extra pair of socks and then a pair of dry clothes to switch into whenever I get to camp at night. So usually that's the shirt that I sleep in and then my tights. And that's it. Aside from that, no, I don't carry like an extra knife or an extra flashlight. I will carry an extra battery for my flashlight, just in case, you know, my power goes out, but that's not a lot of weight. I don't carry 4 extra pairs of socks. I don't carry like double of everything in my medical kit just in case. But it's all up to the hiker. If that makes you feel more comfortable to carry extra stuff on the trail just in case, then by all means do it.
Hey Darwin, it's Francisca here with Hike Oregon. I'm wondering about these fuel canisters. This is the 8-ounce version. I know they make a smaller 4-ounce version. I generally have carried these, but I'm always unsure of how long this is going to last on a backpacking trip. So I always end up with like tons of fuel left over, but I don't want to be in a situation where I don't have enough fuel. So my question to you is, how do you go about measuring how long this is going to last you? I would be preparing water for coffee and oatmeal in the morning, and then I would be cooking a meal at night. So for 2 cooks a day, how long would this last you?
I am the worst person to ask about that because I'm probably just as bad as you are, and like most people, I do the exact same thing. I grab a can of fuel when I am using a stove, and I just use it until there's barely a little bit left in there, and then I usually switch out and get another one. However, I do hold on to those cans. There's actually probably 3 of them sitting in the back of my gearbox right now, and I try to use those whenever I'm like here at camp at night, or if I randomly want to make like a cup of coffee or a cup of tea in the middle of the day, I'll try to use that fuel up so I'm not wasting it, not just throwing away fuel. I know that there is some sort of a trick that you can do by floating your can of fuel in water, and it'll tell you exactly how much fuel you have, but I've never done it. Like I said, I'm just as bad as you are. One thing that a hiker friend taught me a while back is instead of carrying one of the really big cans, is carrying 2 of the smaller cans, so you know that whenever you run out of one, that you always have an extra one, and then whenever you get to town, you can just grab another small one. And it might be just like a little bit heavier, because obviously you have more material with 2 cans versus 1 can, but that's a good way to make sure that you don't run out of fuel on the trail. With all the advantages of using a drone with 4K and wide range of options, I see people using drones for their videos on hiking and other stuff. You ever thought about using one? I know maybe the cost could be a little expensive, but they are making them cheaper and easier to use. Just a thought. So I do have a drone. If you've watched any of the episodes of Travel and Trail, which is a monthly vlog that Snuggles and I do, you'll see some drone shots in that. I'm a big gear geek and a camera geek, so yeah, I bought a drone quite a while ago. I have the DJI Mavic Pro, and I love the thing. You're right, it is super fun to fly. It gives amazing 4K footage. However, I have personally never carried it on a hike and on the trail, and I only ever really use it whenever we're just kind of traveling around, or say maybe we're out on a big piece of land or property. I'm very old school when it comes to respecting national forest and national parks. I would never ever fly it like in a national park, which we visit a lot of. I wouldn't fly it in a national forest if there are restrictions like the one that we're in right now. And I personally don't carry it on the trail because, one, I think it's heavy. Even though they're not crazy heavy, it's still kind of a goofy piece of gear for me to have. Getting that awesome shot, that aerial shot, is just not worth the weight for me. I'd rather just carry a smaller camera and get all of my shots that way. And then the other thing is I don't want to make other hikers mad. There are a lot of hikers that are out on the trail to enjoy the quiet and the serenity, to hear birds and the wind, and I don't want to be flying a drone around because they're pretty loud. They make a lot of noise. Even the nicer ones like my DJI Mavic Pro, even though it's a quieter drone, it's still loud and it can disrupt other people's hikes. So yes, I do have one. I absolutely love it, but I would not carry it on the trail. All right guys, last question of the week. I always watch your Q&A videos, and I was wondering, how do you live with Snuggles in your small home? Can you perhaps make a video of a day in the life when you're not on the trail? I'm kind of curious how your home looks on the inside. Like, where do you go to the toilet, and do you have a shower? So I have teased a lot in the past year about doing a video, like a tour of the inside of our 5x8 cargo trailer. I just haven't done it yet. One, I personally think that you guys, it's boring. You guys wouldn't want to see a day in the life of us living in a trailer. It's not that exciting, and there's really not much to film. It's a 5x8 space that just pretty much has a bed in it, and then in the back is where our kitchen is, so we just open it up and our kitchen's there and we have to access it from the outside. So if I made a video like that, it would just be super boring. And the other thing is, you know, that is our private home. That's more of our private life. So I've kind of been on the fence of doing it just because, I don't know, maybe that's one thing I don't want to share with you guys. Now, as far as do we have a toilet inside? No, again, it's a 5x8 space. So because we usually camp out in national forest, we just use the bathroom outside, just like whenever you're camping. We'll go way out into the woods, we'll dig our cat hole, we'll do our business, and we'll bury it. So it's pretty much like we're camping all the time. And then as far as a shower goes, we usually access local gyms, fitness centers, or YMCAs, and we'll buy either like a week or 2 week pass, or sometimes a month or 2 month pass, and then we'll just use showers at the local fitness center. But yeah, it's pretty much like we're camping all the time, and we love it that way. As far as how do I live with Snuggles in such a small space, it's cramped, but we use the outside a lot. So we utilize the outdoors a lot, which again is what we love, and it's why we did it. And I don't know, maybe one of these days I will make a tour of the trailer for you guys, but as of now, I'll just leave you guys guessing. All right guys, so if you want to leave a question for next week's Q&A, you can either leave it in the comment box below or send a video question over to darwinonthetrail@yahoo.com. And then next week, I'll have a special guest thru hiker here on the Q&A, and we'll both answer your question. If you haven't had a chance yet, go over and check me out on Instagram. I've been posting a lot of new photos lately of some of the things that Snuggles and I have going on throughout the week, plus some pictures from some past hikes. If you found any value in this video, go ahead and hit that like button. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And as always, guys, thanks for watching.